AORN Radio. It is Tuesday.
The time is Tuesday,
April 16th.
April 16th.
Yeah, July hogs are trading at half a dollar above the market. Rob Brown here with you. Brendan Martin in Ocala and Marion County.
Send in the clowns, Rob. Send
in
the clowns.
Send in the clowns. Our top 5 songs with clown themes.
Yes. That should be our question of the day.
It's going to be the question of the day, the quad. Yeah, think about that. Yeah. Hey, breaking news as we come along, worth a mention, Auburn's men's golf is spanking the field at Mossy Oak Collegiate in West Point, Mississippi, which is where, Old Waverly is, that great golf course there. George Bryan put together, the Sara Lee and the Mossy Oak people there. Unbelievable. 23-shot lead in all caps from Doug Dean. He sent this to me. Mother of God. Auburn's 4th straight tournament title, all but sewed up. But now some people, Yankees will call it a tournament. It's a tournament. It's a tournament. It's a tournament, and that's the way it is. Look, got a great show today.
Wait. Do you really spank in golf? Like, is like you really spank somebody in golf?
Doug Dean is such a gifted writer.
So he's going with spank.
Literary license, okay? Yes, okay. I like that. Doug uses the English language to the max. Hey, we got Chris Lee, Southeastern 14, joining us this morning.
Yeah.
Great job. He does always up in Nashville. Soon, he will be changing to the 16, Oklahoma and Texas coming in. Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline. Talk about that wild spring game they had. Man, a lot of contact, a lot of physical tackling up there at the Grove Bowl Saturday with Ole Miss.
Is that what it's called? The Grove Bowl?
The Grove Bowl, yeah. And Rodney,
I would like to know all the names of all the different spring games.
Yeah. They do.
Orange and blue game, like all
A-Day at Auburn, A-Day at Alabama. Arkansas is a red and white game. I kind of want something other good to eat in there. Reckon what you like good to eat in there. Rodney or
like
Tyler
clowns.
Insider. Yeah. I don't like clowns. Reckon you like clowns. Yeah. Look,
send in the clown.
Joni Mitchell, one of the hippies from the 60s, wrote that song. Hey, got a great one today. Rodney or Tyler Insider checks in with us. They had the A-Day game in Tuscaloosa. Kalen DeBoer, first game, he goes out there, about 72,000 in Bryant Denny.
That's it.
Welcome.
72K.
Yeah. Saban's first game, they had
imagine
92,000.
The pucker factor for you being your first game with 72,000 Bama fans all coming to just obsess. Like, that's pressure.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun to get Rodney's take on that. And we'll be back in just a minute. Remember, smash the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner.
If you're watching on Facebook, hit
on your
follow.
Android and iPhone. Yeah, let's go over the list, Brendan, real quick.
Yeah, if you're watching on Facebook, hit that follow button that's up there on the right. You'll get notifications when we're live. Hey, Chris Lee, he just checked in. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the bottom right, hit the YouTube little icon. It'll say subscribe. Go ahead and subscribe. You'll get notifications on when we're live, when we post stuff. And this week, remember, we start our SECU education on what is Texas football and or Texas sports, Oklahoma sports, and all of these things. We're going to break it down for you with all the best folks, and you will get that notification when that is posted, because that won't be live. So
that's it. Here we come.
Hit it. Get your pen and paper. Back. It's on. Handy. Yeah, Chris Lee coming at you right after this.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
Hi, Rob Brown here with you on this Tuesday morning, and a lot happening. Let's get straight to the Mid-State up in Nashville. Chris Lee, Southeastern 14. And Chris, I know you got limited time this morning. Let's talk about the SEC spring games, 8 of them this past weekend. Any takeaways, anything that really jumps out at you?
No, to be honest, I didn't get to see much of anything. I had a family matter pop up, and what SEC sports I did see over the weekend was limited to baseball mostly. Look, I've never been a big spring game guy anyway. I saw what they turned the Ole Miss spring game into. I mean, look, and I'll give you another anecdote. Vandy has had as much open stuff as about the rest of the league combined. Even Vandy this year is going, hey, wait a minute. We're not going to play a spring game and put stuff out there because, we're changing our offensive philosophies. We don't want to give Virginia Tech a leg up to see what's in our heads. So, like, even in my backyard at the most open place, in the football universe for these things, they're taking a more buttoned down approach. So I just don't, even if none of that were the case, I've never been a big fan of spring games anyway, just because, for instance, if your whole offensive line graduates, you might be going through spring ball with 7 undergraduate linemen and half of them aren't going to play. I just think the takeaways from it are overrated to begin with. And then you add the layers of what's going on. And even if I had a chance to watch, I don't know what meaning I would ascribe to it all.
Yeah, you can't get too excited about it. The coolest spring game A-Day I ever saw, when I was at Auburn, Bo Jackson one time at halftime challenged every kid in the stadium to a 100-yard dash sprint. And he gave everybody a 25 or 30-yard head start, and it wasn't close. That was the thing I remember about A-Day. If you get excited about A-Day, that's kind of foolish. Or any spring game.
A-Day? It's called A-Day?
Yeah, at Auburn Day. But I mean, it's saying at any school. Chris, I got to ask you real quick, your take on what's going on in Tennessee football right now. They've got Nico Iamaleava. I think I said it right. Is that right?
I don't know.
Nico Iamaleava?
I had it once corrected in my head. That was January. That's like 30 light years away at this point. I don't think that's it, but I cannot tell you for exact certainty what it is.
But he had look. We know he played in the Iowa game in the bowl. They won 35-0. Tennessee did. Tennessee last year, Joe Milton. All we heard was how strong his arm was. Again, the short and intermediate pass is a big part of football. What did you see from Tennessee, and what are you hearing? What do they have to do to get back to 11 or 12 wins?
Well, look, the thing that's hard to defend right now is the quarterback who can beat you 2 ways. And Joe Milton really can only beat you one way in the end.
One way.
And if they're back to having, that guy, and look, Tennessee had plenty of other guys out there that could play ball, but Hendon Hooker and Joe Milton defending one versus defending the other, it was night and day. I mean, it doesn't matter how strong your arm is if you can't complete simple passes, and that's where that offense went off the rails so many times last year.
Well, isn't that?
I don't know what
the knock though of him is that it was not the knock. But,
yeah,
he was supposed to be. I mean, he was slated to be such a talent, right? And he's just never developed. He's got a gun, a cannon, flat-footed, throw it 80 yards, the whole nine. But we broke him down a lot last year, and it was just he just never seems to sort of command the field. He doesn't have that presence.
But you know what happens? We spend the whole off season where we got nothing else to talk about, and we go back and somebody's put a play on the internet somewhere where he did this one thing one time, and everybody goes crazy and goes, look at the potential. And in the absence of any real news or information between middle of April and start a practice, which is closed anyway, we really don't know what we have till September. In September, what happens is Tennessee's playing Bowling Green, and Kentucky's playing Eastern Kentucky, and people make conclusions based on halves of football against bad teams, and then we don't get to see the real stuff till October. And in a hot take world where people expecting you to have conclusions, things take on a life of their own.
Mm-hmm.
Best recipes usually look at what's right in front of you in meaningful time, and that's usually a pretty good predictor of what you'll see going forward.
Chris, is it fair? Because this is what I do with my team. I will look at their performance on offense against the top 4 teams they play on the schedule. That's what I believe their offense really is. I don't even count the stats that they get in those rental wins. Is that be too critical? I think it's not.
No, I think sports is how do you play against the teams that matter for the most part.
Yeah.
And in a lot of these games, if you're, depending on how you schedule, let's go polar opposite ends of the schedule. Your Florida seems like you've got somebody every week, other than maybe your 1 week to play McNeese State or whatever. They schedule aggressively. And then you got Kentucky, who doesn't schedule anybody in September. If you start the schedule with Vanderbilt and, pick another team in a down cycle in Arkansas or somebody like that, you might get week to week 6 or 7 before you play anybody of consequence.
Yeah.
That's what I've always said about why I think we need the playoffs to be expanded. If you're a Georgia and Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, you really only play about 2 teams that could actually beat you if you're a dominant level team. And so, it's a long way of saying I agree with what you're saying.
You know how dominant. Think about this. Michigan has won 3 straight over Ohio State. Prior to that, Ohio State had won 15 of the previous 16. Michigan, up to 2004, had won 42 Big Ten titles. They didn't win another one until 2023. 2021, 17-year difference. That conference, there's 2 teams. In the SEC, in the last 60 years, there have been 6 different schools win the conference championship. And we know them, LSU, Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, and Georgia. And no one else has done it. But that's 6 different ones. Now, they've had some other ones win it. Is the SEC this year going to get back the national championship that they loaned to the Big Ten for this year? Do you see a team
that jumps know what the rosters are?
Yeah, I know. That's the point. So that's going to be the question.
Good answer. Good answer. I feel like it's Family Feud. Good answer.
But you know what, Chris? We need to have the crawl at the bottom of the screen because guess what started today? What did Don Knotts call it in Get Smart? Chaos Central? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
The portal's reopened.
Oh, it's nuts. We literally have one reporter all day. His job is decide what Gators are going into the portal and who Billy Napier is going to come and get, because he's going shopping for some offensive linemen, because I don't think Florida fixed a lot of their problems.
Yeah. Chris, Kentucky, you're in the mid-state, and I love it because you're everywhere. Okay, you cover. I love your podcast. Love the work that you and your team are doing. Y'all get after it every day. Last year, Mark Stoops flirted with another job, and he stayed. I mean, how strong is Kentucky football? How does he go out there and tell people when he's already been caught, looking around?
That's life in big time football. I think it's here's what's going to happen. It's going to be like Lane Kiffin last year. Okay.
Yeah.
If Lane Kiffin had gone out last year and Ole Miss had gone 5-7, you would be hearing all about Auburn and how he didn't want to be at Ole Miss or whatever people would say. If Mark Stoops goes out and Kentucky goes 10-2 this year, absolutely nobody's going to care. If Mark Stoops goes out this year and they face plant, it's what you're going to hear. I don't think it's a lot more complicated than that.
Jimmy Swaggart made a comeback. So did Jim and Tammy Faye Baker.
Right.
Think about that.
If they can do it.
Yeah, if they can, All right, Chris, let's talk too. What I'm seeing going on nationally is you've got the flyover by the national media. Yeah. I am appreciating more and more because I scan every day and night, working on financial stuff and looking at different podcasts. The local beat writers, like Wes Moore, our friend over in Little Rock last week, who broke that story about Calipari going to Arkansas. Do you not see a revival underway? Because I damn sure feel it, of local media drilling down and pulling fans to them because people appreciate the work and it's real.
Maybe. I mean, there's more local coverage out there than ever before, and I would say baseball would be a good example of it in the SEC. I mean, 10 years ago, I remember I would scan box scores and, say a second baseman at Florida hadn't played in 2 weeks. You'd be like, what's going on? And there would be no record of it out there. And this is Florida, a team that was national title contending caliber program. Tennessee, nobody covered baseball. Now you got anybody and everybody covering sport. Like Tennessee's got about as many people covering that baseball program as any school anywhere. None of them cared 5 years ago. Yeah. Florida's got people down there covering it other than just Nick Delatorre, who's been doing it a while and is really good. Yeah. Here's my point. I see more coverage. I'm not always sure that it's in some way. Now, look, it's better coverage in that we can get information. Like if you have the questions about why has this guy not been playing, you can usually Google something and find it out pretty quickly, where that was a very hit and miss exercise 10 years ago. Now, the problem I see in the sports media world, it just gets so homogenous. A lot of times it's quick takes and sports doesn't always lend itself to quick analysis. We want let's go back to where we started. You asked me a 30,000 foot question about, what do we think of SEC football this year? I said, ask me when I know what the rosters are. But the pressure is there to make instant. Look, I've got ideas on some teams, but there's so many variables and ifs that I can't sit here and give you a great answer. And we live in sound bites and receipts, and you can say something today and somebody will timestamp, will stamp it and say, well, this is the disrespect shown our program and whatever. And, there's no context of, well, this was April. Stuff happened since then. Correct. And now it's September. Again, that's a lot of words to outline some thoughts there. But I don't know. I think in the sense that there's more coverage and you can find out more things, I think it's better. I think the pressure for clicks to monetize and look, the way the world works, it's visibility. It's Google, it's YouTube, it's pleasing algorithms and those kind of things. Right. Your coverage can be great, but I've worked places where I've seen this happen. The people that pay the bills and write the checks a lot of times want clicks and they want things like that. And sometimes that's at odds with really good reporting. And when everybody else is doing that and put out a bunch of content, you've got to scramble to do that in the meantime in order just to get seen. And it's kind of a wild world where we're living in because so much is done to please searches and algorithms and get views. And that's not always consistent with good, complete thoughts and good work.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it's just a matter of time, I think, before Apple buys ESPN. I think that's coming because think about this. When was the last time you went out in public to a store to buy an alarm clock, a radio, or a camera? You think about, everything we do is in the palm of our hand.
Just think about Radio Shack and why they're out of business. Cell phones.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what put Radio Shack out of business.
Yeah, it is. Chris, look, the compelling stories right now. What do you see before you go? What do you see and what do you want to see happen from the NCAA? I mean, I'm for them just to go away. And we need a commissioner. But what do you want to happen in the next 2 weeks in the portal? Do we need some crash and burns with NIL deals? Because one of my people I met last week in Little Rock at a meeting made a great point. The NIL is the match, the portal is the can of gasoline, and watch out.
All right, this is the part where I talk out of both sides of my mouth and try to make it harmonize at the end. I don't like the world of college sports as it currently exists. I don't think it's good when you can go through the handshake line and say to somebody, hey, kid, come play for us next year. I don't like what's happening to the smaller schools, and that's probably an unpopular opinion in SEC country.
I agree with
I
you
don't
totally
like,
on that, by the way.
Yeah, I don't like the fact that you can try to build a program with integrity and processes and development, and all of a sudden, with one thing, it all gets thrown to the wind, and people can tamper with your guys and whatever. I'm for being able to move and kids needing a better life. That's what we do in life, Rob. I mean, if you don't like where you're working and somebody can give you a better deal, I support your right to move on. At the same time, the product's a little different. We're trying to put together a league where let's use Major League Baseball as an example. I think in order for what the New York Yankees do to have meaning, you can't have too many Oakland A's around. You're always going to have a few, but you need everybody to kind of take it serious, or it cheapens the whole market and everybody's accomplishments. Okay, let's put that aside on one hand. On the other hand, I've always said I feel like we kind of need a few years of chaos to just open it up and say, all right, let's just say there's no limits. What would somebody pay a star quarterback? What would somebody pay a backup defensive back? What is that worth to people? And I felt like we kind of needed a little bit of time to see what that is, because we had limits for a long time that said, Rob, your son's a 5-star football player, but if he takes a steak dinner from somebody, and gets caught, and think back to the Ohio State tattoo scandal, how out of place does that seem now in this world?
Yeah.
I felt like we needed this world where you had all these guardrails that were incredibly restrictive, and now we've got this, nothing seems to be restricted. Let's see where that latter world settles and what that looks like and what people are willing to pay. And then maybe let's try to rein it all in and put some guardrails back to it where, everybody's got a shot to compete without it just being one rogue booster writing checks and outbidding everybody, like pro sports would be without a salary cap. Yep. I hope that now that we've seen what people are willing to pay, that's used in some sort of meaningful way to shape policies going forward. And I hope to God this is the start of a period where we can start putting some kind of law and order and shape back to college sports.
I do too. And I think that, what you're saying, that the tampering, that's another thing that's really, really, it's going on. And you see, we know what the NCAA does. It's selective enforcement. Certain schools screw up, they're going to get punished. All right. One more thing. When you talk about Vanderbilt, how's the Skinner box looking? That's what Audrey calls the 26,000 shrunken stadium. Not to be confused with the shrunken head at the Memphis Pink Palace Museum, the most popular exhibit among all the guys at every fundraiser party you ever go to. But they're going to be doing First Bank as a sponsor. Now, I work for First Bank. That's a big commitment our bank has made. A big commitment. How's it going?
Well, there's lots of holes in the ground and lots of girders going up. And allegedly the end zone that used to the end zone used to be the open end zone is going to be closed. That's where their basketball facility is. That's supposed to be finished sometime this fall. I don't know if that's just the forward facing seating part or if that's all the gym too, where they're actually going to work out. I mean, it's a multi-purpose building, because on the outside you've got things designed for fans, luxury seating. On the inside, it's where the basketball teams are going to live, basically. So that's going to be done. And it's supposed to be allegedly, it's supposed to be the country's largest practice facility for basketball, for college sports. So that's supposed to be done. The other end, the girders have gone up, the one that everybody made fun of on TV all year. I've seen the steel beams and everything last time I was over there a couple of weeks ago. That's supposed to be done by the start of the 2025 season for football. What that looks like this year remains to be seen, but those have been the plans for a while, and I presume they're going to be completed the way they said they were. In the meantime, you've got to mess around the baseball stadium where they're poised to add sort of an overhang and additional seating there, and that's a mess too. I mean, it's just They closed off the street that goes between the football stadium and the athletic complex. That's going to be a walkway in a green space. It's going to look a lot different when it's done, but there's a lot of time between now and when it's done.
Any truth, rumor they're going to have Jason Aldean at a concert for the opening game next season if they get it finished? I mean, why not? Why not start having country music concerts at the games? Following I think that would draw people in.
Who knows? I'd probably be the last guy to know about that right now. That's not. I'm not even a country music.
I'm just making that up, but I'm saying,
sure.
Why not have
You're
concerts?
Not? I so thought you were.
No.
Listen, when you live in Nashville, you probably He's probably got every album Led Zeppelin ever made, though. But Chris, Nashville.
I'm a Swiftie, dude. I'm a Swiftie.
Yeah, so's my daughter right now. I have
a daughter.
That.
Okay. Yeah. How old's your daughter, Chris?
She's 12.
I have 11-year-old. So we're Swifties. We don't have a choice.
Right. That's right. And
I'm
Nashville,
there, but
Nashville's one of the coolest towns, like Memphis. The music industry. It just, but when you get on Broadway, Chris, wow, all the way down from the Grand Hyatt where we had SEC Media Days last year, all the way down to the river for where the Titans play in Bridgestone Arena. They got it right. They really did get it. You know that. Now, you probably want to live in Williamson County now because of the traffic. But hey, look, Chris, I know you got to get going. Tell people how they can follow you. Love the work that you're doing, folks. Appreciate local beat writers, the podcasting world. That's where the best information's coming out because free speech is alive and well. I love it. Thanks for coming on here with us.
Yeah, thank you. Southeastern 14 is our YouTube channel. We cover baseball, football, basketball in the SEC. I'm a little behind. I had a family situation that popped up last week that's taken most of my time. Yeah. So I'm going to try to get caught up on baseball with some power rankings today. Got some research to do. We're doing football. We usually start publishing that on Wednesdays and holding it over to the next week. Got a new team guy I think we're going to announce pretty soon to cover that for us. So pretty excited about that. I've got my guys, Blake Lovell and Max Barr, are keeping track of the transfer portal, the coaching changes, all the stuff in basketball. So we try to cover all three sports. We're in scramble mode a little bit right now, but we're getting caught up.
Man, trying to keep up with the portal is like herding confetti in a windstorm. That's going to be fun.
Yes, it is.
Hey, Chris, thank you. Hope everything's better. Keep you in our prayers. Love having you on here. I can't say it enough. We cannot do this without the best guest, and you're one of them, okay?
Hey, thanks, guys. God bless you.
All right. You bet. Same to you. God bless you. We'll see you next week. I'm going to tell you what, Brendan, the Swiftie he talks about with the Swifties, Nashville, Memphis, you can be down on, South Main in Memphis. Go into a place like Ernestine and Hazel's, which has got some of the greatest smash burgers on the griddle. I'm talking about serious sliders. And
are you the mayor of Memphis? I feel like
but you might go in there and see Mick Jagger.
We got a prayer in Memphis.
Well, no, I'm talking about the music industry, Nashville, what they've got, and you just think if you're in Orlando, you may run into a third or fourth generation family of carnies or circus people or clowns
or clowns.
Send in the clowns. Okay, look, let me say something real quick, too. Harold Grader sent this to me, Executive Vice President of the AutoZone Liberty Bowl. The Spring Speaker Series for the Memphis Touchdown Club, going to be pretty cool, coming up in a couple of weeks. Monday, April 29th, Paul Feinbaum will be there. 5:30 social hour, 6:15 dinner program. This is a special Spring Speaker Series. May 6th, that's also a Monday. Coach Houston Nutt, formerly of Arkansas, Boise, Ole Miss, great work on CBS. Coach Nutt told me this past year, he goes, Rob, I'm taking off from CBS, being in the studio. I'm going to stay in Little Rock. I'm going to go to my grandson's football game. He goes, I have never been to a tailgate because, he's been in coaching his whole life. So really cool. Houston Nutt will be there May the 6th. May 13th on a Monday, Greg McElroy, former Alabama quarterback, ESPN analyst, has a great show, Mac and Cube in the mornings. June 10th, Cole Kubelik will be here. All of these, Memphis Touchdown Club, Spring Speaker Series, 5:30 social hour, 6:15 dinner program at the Hilton in East Memphis. Go to the Memphis Touchdown Club website and join. It's a great series. Dinner, you get to be around a bunch of other football junkies. It's $300 for the 4 speakers combined. That is the hell of a deal. And then join the club. Touchdown clubs wherever you are.
Yeah.
They support
quarterback clubs, touchdown clubs.
And I know Memphis, they support LeBonner Children's Hospital. They make a big donation every year to that. We talk a lot about the Monday Morning Birmingham Quarterback Club. Last year, by the end of the season, the Monday Morning Birmingham Quarterback Club presented more than $1.6 million to local charities, among them Children's Hospital of Alabama. 3 years ago, October, I think it was the 13th of 2021, at Protective Life Stadium in Birmingham, the quarterback club had a big dinner gathering, and at the 50-yard line, they landed the brand new helicopter that they bought for Children's Hospital of Alabama. And this is all with football. I'm telling you, the love of football, the love of the game, and then people compete which fan base can raise the most money for good, worthy causes. I think that's absolutely amazing. That's the great stuff. That's the power of the pigskin and sports in general. But the power of the pigskin, Brendan, ain't nothing like it. And being stuck in an elevator for 6 hours with a bunch of clowns.
Or just riding the elevator like I did with Nick Saban when you didn't realize
how fun was that?
Decked out in gator gear. Being 6'4" and he's like 5'3".
Yeah, I bet you.
He's like the Gators, huh? The Gators. Yeah. Like he just like, I hate you.
Yeah. Well,
I thought he was gonna rough me up with his goons.
Oh yeah. MemphisTouchdownClub.com. Find a touchdown club, quarterback club. You've got a great one in Ocala.
Yeah. We got a really good quarterback club. It's been here for a long time. Buddy's been a part of it. They meet. They're awesome. Gainesville's got awesome. The touchdown club up there is really great, and then they have the Gator Club and the quarterback clubs. They have a lot of good stuff. I mean, Urban Meyer spoke at one last year. I mean, it's huge. Tons of people. They got to get like one of those rooms in a hotel, conference rooms. There's so many people. So I love going to those things. I think you really find out a lot of information, and not to mention it's a great way to get to know your other people who are fans and whatnot. I think that's where the SEC in a lot of ways lives in the off season, right? Like during football season, it's all about the tailgates, right? And then, hanging out and the camaraderie with that. But I think in the off season, or whatever, most of these are during the season, but when you go in and you have dinner and somebody speaks, that was a great
coffee,
speaker.
Audrey?
Yeah. Audrey, I need some coffee.
Sorry.
Mildred!
I thought I'd hit the mute button there.
Mildred! This coffee sucks.
Pow.
Send in the clown coffee.
Pow. Yeah, think of Mildred, who used to call in on the Feinbaum show. Bob Lockamy, his original producer, my friend, who's helped us a lot. Love that man down in Birmingham. Bob was with Paul Feinbaum from 1988 to 1999. And he said they had to put Paul on at night a lot because he really shook things up. But Mildred, I'm going to guess Mildred's in her 107 now. If Mildred is still with us.
I don't think Mildred's with us anymore.
You gotta look up Mildred. But Yancy Porter, send the link, Rob. I've got to that this is, for whatever reason, this link, I just sent it to him. He'll be with us in a second. Let me say this, Brendan. What's going on in college sports right now?
Yeah.
Portal starting today. You've got somebody, GatorbaitMedia.com and Southeastern 14. And we're going to be keeping up with it on this show with our guests. The portal and all the movement, again, Jack Crystal, the voice of Mississippi State for 58 years, would often say there's movement in the aisles here in Scott Field in Starkville, Mississippi. The maroon and white falls short once again to Alabama, 49-14. But we'll be back. Sonic drive of the game. Hey, Brendan, let me say this. What you talked about algorithms and YouTube and all, and you told me something. A lot of people spend years trying to figure it out.
Oh.
We hired you and figured it out in 10 days. God love you.
About 9.5.
9.5. Okay. Hey, Yancy Porter. Yancy Porter's with us right now. Rebel Yell Hotline. Look, get the app on your phone. Rebel Yell Hotline, Monday nights, 6 p.m. Central, Sports 56, WHBQ in Memphis, and Super Talk. It's 2 syllables, Mississippi. Mississippi. If you're a Yankee, you would call it Mississippi.
What's Mississippi with 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi?
Yeah.
That's 7 Mississippi Pass.
Yancey Porter, Chuck Rounsell, Harry Harrison, Gary Darby, Gordon Ford, the whole crew in one of the penultimate college towns in Lafayette County, Mississippi, Oxford, home of the Rebels, home of probably the most physical spring game out there. Yancy, have they recovered from Saturday?
I don't know. I mean, when you try to shove about 30 hot dogs in your mouth in a minute and a half.
So gross.
It'd take me about 2 weeks to recover from that.
I mean, it takes me 2 weeks to recover after watching it. Did you watch it on ESPN when they do it in like every year? Like how many hot dogs that they can eat? They have that.
Joey Chestnut came down.
Joey Chestnut.
Yeah, I mean, no, I didn't watch it. I was out there, so I didn't physically watch it on TV, the replays or anything. But yeah, I've seen hot dog eating contests before.
Well, look, you know what? This spring, we had 15 days of practice. Obviously, Lane Kiffin, he isn't considered a hell of a coach because he doesn't know what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. There's a method to the madness. You want to explain that to us from your perspective?
Yeah, it's easy. I mean, you have the spring portal that starts, it started this morning, actually, or at midnight last night.
At midnight.
And, they already had one player go in the portal. So it's the way that things are set up now. So players are trying to find a place where they're going to be at least in the rotation and be a factor next season.
All right, let's talk about Jackson Dart. He's been at Ole Miss. This is his 3rd year. Is he even 20 yet?
I think so. He entered young, right? As a freshman, he was 17, and I don't know. I'd have to look at his birthday, but he was a young freshman. He had a good spring. He had a little procedure that he was bothered all last season. He runs so physical, so he had, I think, a knee scope or something like that.
Yeah.
But by the middle of spring practices, he was full go. But there was no, there was no tackling anybody to the ground, no pads on all spring. It was just really set up to learn the plays and everybody get to know one another from all the new transfers and really just learning the offense and the defense.
Okay, let's talk about some names we're hearing about Ole Miss is trying to go after in the portal. I'll start with running back Henry Parrish, who's down at Miami. Where do you think he'll end up?
That's a good question. Everything is set, has been set for him to return. Do they get Martinez, the big running back from Oregon State? There's rumors that Penny could be going in the portal from Louisville. That just went in the portal to transfer to Louisville before spring practice started. I still think Ole Miss is going to get 2 running backs here in the spring. They only had one healthy running back all spring, Vascano, the freshman running back, which was good in that retrospect because he needed a lot of reps with Judkins leaving, obviously. But Bentley had a knee procedure. He had his scoped, and so he didn't go through spring practice. They got, in my eyes, they really need to get 2 more and go back to that 3-headed monster that they had before Judkins. So we'll see.
Ulysses Bentley, the 4th, 5th, and 6th. He is an SMU transfer, really good back. Logan Diggs had knee surgery. How's he coming along?
Yeah, Diggs is a different situation because he had, a major surgery. I think he had ACL surgery. They've never really said for sure what the injury was. You know how Lane is about injuries, but it's been assumed he had ACL surgery. I think it was back in January. That's why they're saying that he could possibly return around November-ish. And now, if Ole Miss does what everybody hopes and expects him to do, you're looking at a 16, 17 game schedule. So, once they expanded this playoffs to 12 teams, It's basically an NFL schedule. Instead of playing 12, 13 games, you can go 17 games. So it's a different beast. You come back in November, you miss the first 8 games, and you come back for the last 8 games, right? So he will definitely be a factor later in the season, regular season, for that home stretch. But we'll just see how that knee responds coming back at that point.
All right, let's go to the defensive side. And I'm going to give you credit. 2 years ago, you were way ahead of the curve about Jackson Dart. Everybody thought Luke Altmaier was the man. And you said, Jackson Dart is much more to Lane Kiffin's liking. He's a gunslinger. He's aggressive. And you were right on that. You also have been dead right on the progress on the defensive side, especially with the front guys on the defensive line. Is it correct that of the top 5 guys available in the portal on the defensive line, Ole Miss signed 3 or 4 of them?
Yeah, they did, and they lost Tyler Barron after he committed to Ole Miss, and then he ended up at Louisville. He actually moved to Oxford, and then ended up at Louisville, and now there's strong rumor that he's going to leave Louisville and come to Ole Miss after all. So, if they were able to get him, I believe that would be 3 out of the top 4. We'll see what transpires with this again. The madness of this transfer portal and players being able to transfer multiple times in the same year just kind of it leaves your head spinning. That's why colleges like Ole Miss treated spring practice more or less just learning your offense and trying to hide who's going to be a factor next season. I mean, you got some players like Jackson Dart where he's going to be the guy, but it's a very difficult situation for the coaches. Imagine being in the NFL and you sign a player and they go through training there and their little spring training and then they decide they want to leave and go sign with another team. It's just it's madness for sure.
Well, what was it about the 3 Bears? This bed's too soft. This bed's too hard. That's why guys go in the portal. Mattress is too hard. The pillow's not soft enough. Or the coach yells at them.
Isn't that the Princess and the Pea? I think maybe.
No, it was the Bears. But so Yancy in the Ole Miss on the way they're going into this season, and I got a ton of Ole Miss friends. I mean, I love Oxford. One thing about the Grove is, and it's always been, we may not win every game, but we've never lost the party. That's going to be different this year, isn't it? Because people are going to be out there like that Spartan mentality. I mean, you go to Tuscaloosa and Auburn and Gainesville and Athens. I mean, you win every game. And if they don't win, there's a certain element of people out there that, I don't know, get rid of all of them. I mean, it's Ole Miss, they've got this Grove collective, and it's raising a lot of money. This is going to be a year where a lot of people in Vegas are picking Ole Miss to win the whole thing. But you said something a second ago that's right. And Rodney Orr's going to join us here momentarily from Tider Insider. But Yancy, real quick, and I love the conversation with you and Rodney on here because you're 2 of the smartest football minds and best people that we have on here. But what about the pressure on Ole Miss, the expectations? I think Lane Kiffin is the perfect guy mentally to handle it.
Yeah, the expectations is enormous. It's something that has not been seen at Ole Miss. You've had a few years where, 4 or 5 years where they were 1 game away from making the playoffs, but going into the season, it wasn't playoffs or bust like it is this year. So it's a different mindset. A lot's riding on it. The interesting thing is going to be is if they do get that first loss, can you sustain a second loss, maybe in the SEC West, or now there's really not a West or an East, but in the SEC, you probably can. But then there's enormous pressure, right? It's do or die. You can't lose another game. That's when it's going to be really interesting once these teams get a first loss, especially schools like Ole Miss, where there's so much expectations for them to make that playoffs.
Yeah, Yancy, I love this conversation. Let's talk to Rodney Orr, Tider Insider. It's only $48 a year. The May Veterinary Clinic Tider Insider Report, Tuscaloosa, Northport. Locations open every day Sundays, 3 to 5 p.m. pickup at Camp May. If you've got dogs or cats, you want to let them stay overnight. They've even got a cement pond for them to swim in and connecting cat condos. Rodney, there's no real pressure for the coach at Alabama, so it's a laid back, kind of like being out in the Florida Keys. Let's talk about that laid back atmosphere there following Nick Saban.
Oh yeah, it's just really nonchalant around here.
Kind of
Low
laissez faire.
expectations. No pressure.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. No,
Other
I
than
mean,
that, let's.
I will say this. I do think Kalen DeBoer has handled everything extremely well since he's, come in. This transition in terms of just the way he's managed things has been, really good. And I think that's part of that is that, he's kind of his own guy and he does things in a very respectful way. It's certainly not something that he's done to say, we're going to forget Nick Saban or anything like that, because he's actually incorporated some of the things that Saban did. But he's also done a lot of things his way and made some changes. So I think the transition right now so far, and again, everything depends on, it's like I was talking to somebody this weekend at A-Day, the bottom line is ultimately it's going to come down what happens on the field. But, he's handled everything really, really well so far.
Hi, you had a wide receiver that transferred from Washington, and I'm sure Yancy and Brendan and everybody's seen him. Jeremy Bernard looked pretty good, had a couple of big catches in the A-Day game in front of 72,000. That's the exact number of people that they can cram into Husky Stadium there on Lake Washington out in Seattle. I bet you that was quite a feeling in the stomach and all for Kalen DeBoer to come out and see that. But let's talk about Jeremy Bernard and some of the guys that have come in from Washington and other schools that played in the A-Day game.
Well, I think Jeremy had two really big catches in this game, the A-Day scrimmage, and he looks like a guy that's going to make a significant impact. Obviously, this year, I think he was going to be their number one receiver at Washington with the departure of their other guys. And yeah, he's a good-looking player. I mean, I think he's going to add a lot to this room. And I think Keon Sabb at safety is another guy that from transfer from Michigan that's going to make a huge impact. I think Damani Jackson at cornerback is really had a great spring. You transfer from USC, so I think that was something that's really important. Again, I'm just kind of going off the top of my head. Parker Brailsford, the center, was running with the ones. He and James Brockemeyer, but I'm not really sure exactly what has transpired with Parker, but I know he took off the last half of spring practice. But Kalen DeBoer said he will be back, with the team. And then they've got obviously some other guys. Again, I'm probably missing somebody off the top of my head. I mean, I know that there are some other guys, a couple other guys that transferred in, but Austin Mack would be one of those, and I think he's a young quarterback. He's got a lot of potential, but I think he's probably at least a year away.
All right, Yancy, jump in this conversation. That's what I love about having the rival schools. They know a lot about each other, and they also can ask questions. One of them, though, Ole Miss won't be playing Alabama this year, but Yancy, jump in here.
Yeah, man, that's the really disappointing thing about the expansion of the SEC is getting rid of all these long time robberies that you play every year. It doesn't feel right for Ole Miss to not be playing Alabama and Auburn every year. I don't know. I'm a creature of habit, so maybe I need to just adapt with the new times. But it feels weird. I don't know about for Rodney, but it feels weird from my perspective. It's got to feel weird for like Mississippi State as well. I mean, at Alabama and Auburn or two of their biggest rivalries and money makers on their schedule as well. So for the Mississippi teams not to be playing the Alabama teams, it just doesn't feel right.
Ditto. Rodney, I agree with that.
Yeah, a lot of things don't feel right. You're right. I agree with that 100%. So many things that are going on that are changing and we look at today, for example. I mean, there's people all over TiderInsider.com about this transfer portal and how it might impact Alabama, other teams in the SEC, either favorably or unfavorably. So I think there's a lot of people kind of sitting around and waiting. And by the way, since, there's probably some Alabama fans listening, last night we had put it out on TighterandSetter.com, according to our sources, that it appeared Ty Simpson, who was the guy that a lot of people thought would be a hot commodity in the portal market, that our sources told us that he was staying in Tuscaloosa. And, Ryan Fowler, who we work in conjunction with a lot, Tide 100.9.
Yeah.
He also Ryan, confirmed that as well. So Ty, and then Dylan Lonergan, another player, is extremely talented. I'm telling you, he could be a commodity in the market. Based on what I was told yesterday, I thought it sounded promising that, Dylan Lonergan would also stay throughout the next season. So, you know what? If that happens, a lot of people said there's no way you're going to keep that quarterback room together. That's just another coup for Kalen DeBoer. So, we'll see, because I think both those guys could really make a contribution somewhere.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. And you look at what Yancy said, Alabama's schedule this year, no Ole Miss on there. It's different, but it's still the SEC. Ole Miss could play. Look, the way the numbers are lining up, the top four will be Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss, and Texas heading into the season. Ole Miss and Alabama could play. It just might be in Atlanta, which would be pretty cool for the Rebels, Yancy.
Yeah, I think that would be a really interesting way for them to actually have to play each other, or in the playoffs for that fact. Yeah. To me, Georgia's still they're the lead dog. I mean, I know Alabama beat them at the end of the year. Rodney, I was shocked that happened. You know that, but Georgia was the best team in the country last year, bar none. And they've got their quarterback coming back. They've got the offensive line coming back. They are the team to beat for next year, and that's just the way that I see it going into the 24 season.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't disagree with that. I think they probably are the best team, but I think a lot of things are changing too. Like I said, I think a lot of it's really going to be interesting to see. You talk about Georgia being the best team. They may have the best talent overall now. Alabama might have slipped a little the last year or so in that regard. Not that Alabama's still not loaded. I think they like their personnel quite a bit. Again, just looking at it from this perspective. But, I do think, too, I think that there's now some offenses in this conference that could give Georgia a lot of trouble, give Kirby a lot of trouble. Because I do think that they've always been susceptible to quarterbacks and receivers who can make plays. And, Alabama was not that great of a team in 2021. And to be honest with you, I don't think anybody can deny this. Bryce Young lit them up 421 yards. That was the greatest defense ever, right? That's what everybody says. Well, they lit them up for 421 yards passing, and would have lit them up again. But Bryce, unfortunately, had to play with guys that weren't ready to play at wide receiver in that championship game. So I only say that to say this. Georgia was the best team in the country that year. There's no doubt. I'm not discrediting what they achieved with that national championship. What I am saying is that a guy like Kalen DeBoer, it's going to be interesting to see, just how his offense kind of, in the SEC, what kind of impact it can have. Because I watched it on A-Day, and I'm telling you, it went a lot more smoothly than I kind of anticipated after 15 practices. They're going to be able to – I think the offensive line is going to be good. I think they're going to be able to run the ball. They've got 3 really talented backs, assuming they keep them all. I mean, these are really talented backs. And with Milroe, and again, he's going to be the guy starting at quarterback. I know a lot of people ask that, but right now there's not going to be a change as we see it today. Okay, something could happen down the road. But what I'm trying to say is this: They're going to be balanced. He's going to be a real weapon as a runner. I think they're going to utilize him more as a runner and try to coerce him, if you will, to become more of a runner. So, look, I mean, I think Alabama offensively going to be really, really good. So when Georgia comes to town, I'm going to be excited to see, how that plays out. But I do think I'm with Yancy on this. I do think Georgia definitely, clearly the favorite going in.
Yeah, and
I think there's no question that Alabama has the toolbox, so to speak, to win it all as well. I think Ole Miss does too. I think Texas does. I think Ohio State
is going to be loaded and is probably going to be the biggest threat outside of the SEC. They had a hell of a haul in the portal, including getting arguably the best tailback in the country there from Ole Miss there in Judkins. Yeah. And what a 1-2 punch that's going to be. So it's going to be a fascinating season. And look, I mean, they got a guy named Manning over there in Texas who's had a year to kind of nurture and soak up the offense. And if an injury occurs there at quarterback or if his toe slips up, Manning gets in there. What kind of storyline that would be over there at Texas? So there's a lot of different storylines that can transpire this season coming up.
Yancy, let me throw this one at you too. Texas and Georgia play this year in Austin. That's going to be a real interesting matchup because Sark could be a lot for Kirby to handle. I mean, he's going to have players. There's no question about that. He's going to have the weapons. Sark is with the quarterback coming back. Ewers, that they're going to have receivers and running backs and skilled people, and they've got some offensive linemen that they've recruited over the last couple of years that have been really good for them, and now are growing up. Should be good. So we'll see. The one question I have about Texas is they lost Bo Davis. I think Bo Davis is the best defensive line coach in America. Yeah. I think he set the tone for that Texas team last year with the way they played. Javonte Sweat won the Outland. They had a really stout defensive front. But anyway, with all that said, that's going to be interesting. Now, I haven't seen Ole Miss's schedule. Did they play Texas, Yancy? That would be real interesting if Manning went back to Oxford by chance and started, for Texas.
Yeah, I mean, no, they don't play. I thought for sure that they were going to set that on the schedule, but no, they don't. They do play Oklahoma. They play Oklahoma at home. I mean, honestly, it's a pretty favorable schedule for Ole Miss. They got to go play at Florida towards the end of the season. They got to play at LSU. Which we've seen many years.
Well, the scheduling, Yancy and Rodney, you're talking about.
This year they did not play. They did not play Alabama this year. Don't play Auburn, but they do play Georgia. They play Georgia at home. So Georgia, Oklahoma, Florida, LSU. Those are really the four stumbling blocks in my eyes for Ole Miss.
And think about this, too. You talk about playing Georgia. Last year, Georgia embarrassed Ole Miss and Lane in Athens, right? Lane this year. I mean, listen, again, I tell you, when you got a play caller, guy with weapons like Lane's going to have, I mean, that's going to be an interesting, challenge, I think. It's really going to be when Georgia goes to Athens, goes to Oxford, that's going to be an interesting game, in my opinion.
Rodney, I wanted to. We lost Yancy real fast, but I just wanted to step back once, a little bit. Rodney, you talk about going to play in Texas, and Yancy will bring him back in. You talk about going to play in Texas, and we're doing, sort of a deeper dive on Texas and Oklahoma in the offseason, talking just about the whole culture of it. But speaking to that perspective, how much does that affect, a team in the SEC that's been around for so long and storied? But now they go into a place like Texas, which I've seen a couple of games there. It is a very different environment, wouldn't you say? There's a lot of adjustments there, and the same for Ole Miss going into Oklahoma. I mean, Oklahoma is, I've seen games there. I mean, these are two storied programs.
Oh, absolutely. But let me say this: I think the shock of it is more on Texas side, or more. I don't know about Oklahoma. Because I haven't really talked to a lot of people up there. But see, the reason I say that is because last year, of course, I grew up in Texas. So, I started hearing it last summer. hey, we're coming to Tuscaloosa. We're excited to see it, whatever. And they were stunned. I mean, they were like, wow, is everything like this in the SEC? Is every place, every Gainesville, Auburn, are all of these places like this? I mean, is this unique to Alabama? And I'm like, no, this is the SEC. This is the SEC. You go to Oxford, you're going to see the passion. You go to Knoxville, you're going to see the passion, all of these things. So I think it's really been, I mean, Texas fans to me, watching them through the years, they kind of sit on their hands, right? I mean, it's not really, to me, and it's not a really exciting environment to me, but they're going to catch on. The passion is going to get them. There's no doubt about that, because I can tell you 2 years ago when Alabama went to Austin, that place was like, I've never seen Austin before. I mean, they were into it on a totally different level. I'm talking about, look, I grew up watching Texas and Texas A&M, but when Alabama came to Austin, it was at a different level. And
and I think
that's something that's that's going to be contagious.
Yeah, I agree with you. And like Georgia this year plays Clemson August 31st, Mercedes-Benz Stadium here in Atlanta, where we are this morning. And then they've got to play, Georgia's got to play at Ole Miss. They've got to play at Alabama. So, and I'm thinking about playing at Texas, at Ole Miss, at Alabama, and Clemson in that first game. They got a tough schedule. And those teams are predicted to be really good. You never know until the season starts, guys, and that's about scheduling. Yancy, Lane Kiffin, mentally, I think what Yancy said is true. I mean, what Rodney said is right on. You got a guy with the play calling skills in his mind and the weapons that Lane Kiffin has. You could be in the SEC if the league is really strong. I'll predict the 9-3 team could make the playoffs in a 12-team playoff. And I'm not saying Ole Miss is going to lose 3 games, but you lose a couple of games and you're still, and you don't get blown out in those games. I think Ole Miss in this case would be a lock to be in the playoff. And it just getting in that playoff, it's a start. But you can't win it if you're not in there. So the regular season is going to matter.
It does, because look, if you're one of the first 4 seeds, you get a bye, and getting one less week is huge. So like I said, I mean, you can play a 17-game schedule. You got the SEC championship game. That's game 13. You don't get a bye. You play the first round of the playoffs, and on we go to 17 games. So there's still a lot riding on the regular season. I would not want to get 3 losses to test that theory, but you lose in you fight Georgia down to the end, you lose that. You fight LSU down to the end there at LSU, and something crazy happens at Florida. Florida has a good year, and there's things that can happen where you can get a window in for 3 losses with the 12-team playoff now, and that's what makes expanding the playoffs. We're at 12. We all know we're going to 16 in a couple of years, but it's just good to get it from 4 to 12 in my eyes.
Yeah, I agree with that. About you don't want to, Rodney and Yancy and Brendan, you don't want to test the 3-loss deal. It's kind of like the saying, jump up, hook up, shuffle to the door, jump right out, count to 4. If my main don't open wide, look, I got a reserve by my side. If my reserve fails me too, look out ground, I'm a coming through. You don't want to go there. Okay.
I've never heard that.
That was at Airborne School. I did a series called Hunters from the Sky at Fort Benning, Friar Drop Zone, which is on the Alabama side. That was intense. 47 checks on those parachutes. You better make sure those people down at Lawson Airfield at Fort Benning are not hungover and tired. All right, we got to wrap up because we got to do a something here. Yancy and I do, Brendan and I do in just a minute. But let me say first off, Yancy, thank you so much for coming on here, and Rodney. Again, you can't tell your guests enough and your viewers how much you appreciate everything they do. You've got a great book, Bigger Than Bama. Folks, Bama fan, whoever you're a fan of, be a fan of Rodney Orr. He's a good man, great father, grandfather. He's written a book that everybody needs to read. Again, it's like working out your brain. You'll think differently when you start reading this book. The QR code's up on the screen. But both of you, Yancy, let them know how they can follow you, and then you do it as well, Rodney, and we'll let y'all out of here.
Yeah, just at Yancy Porter anywhere on social media, and then every Monday night from 6 to 7 on your local Super Talk or WHPQ station.
Is there an app for it?
Anywhere we put the podcast up, anywhere you want to go, iTunes, Spotify, all of them. So if you don't catch the show live, you can just look it up on podcasts.
I love it. Y'all have a lot of fun. Rodney, let them know how they can follow you and keep up with your great work as well.
Thank you, Rob. It's TiderInsider.com. It's only $48 a year, and you can get instant access with your credit card if you prefer. There is an address there to send a check. Gives y'all our premium information, but also that's our community of Alabama fans there that's part of that. And great community, a lot of information, a lot of sharing there. And then also you mentioned Bigger Than Bama. You can find that on RodneyOrr.com, or you can go to Amazon to find our book, and we greatly appreciate that, Rob.
And check out the QR code on the screen in the chat room. You can click on that. It takes you right to Rodney's website. So
yeah, and Tider Insider TV tonight, as you always say, you never know until you get there what you and Gary will be talking about, but you can follow it. Hey, want to thank all of our great sponsors like Chad House, ECS House Industries. Go to the website, houseindustriesinc.com. Breaking Ground, all the great agricultural equipment, the better roller, the pulverizer, the better chopper. They manufacture it all in a 99,000 square foot warehouse in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, located between Wynn and Jonesboro, and they make the aerators for the catfish farms. They're in the Mississippi Delta, but they've got a global reach. And the Vitamin Shop, Oxford and Olive Branch, Mississippi as well. Proud to have them as a sponsor. Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. Over 7,000 pairs of boots. Great men's and women's clothing. Yeah, great cowboy hats.
I feel like I need to get decked out.
I'm going to get you a hat. They've got Acres Down South shirts.
I got a really big head, though.
Filson, yeah, they got duck heads. Well, we'll get you a hat size. We'll get you a Texas-sized cowboy hat to wear on the show. I'm going to get you one. We're going to send it to you. Okay, a man wearing a black hat. You are Rip from Yellowstone. That'll be your new name.
And it's Yellowstone, and then I want the silver, like the band going.
Hey,
like
I'm gonna tell you something else. What you need to do. Audrey's got a badass hat with several bands around it. The Navajo bands. They're beautiful.
I don't want one
hats.
that's a girl. I don't want one that's.
No, it's a woman's hat. She's a microcephalic, I might add. Anyway, small head.
Audrey,
Audrey, coffee. But let me say something else too. RumbleBoxingGym.com. in Midtown Memphis, 1835 Union Avenue. You talk about a great workout. I got to work out every day. As you can tell, I got a lot of energy, and I'm wound up like JoJo, the circus boy. But I'll tell you, they do classes Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. to 7 p.m., Saturdays and Sundays, 9 a.m. to noon. Check them out. 48 people in the classes, 45 minutes long. Unbelievable workout with elite instructors. They're 15 3-minute sessions, like 15 3-minute rounds in a prize fight. Brendan, in his previous life, was a heavyweight fighter.
I was.
He was one of those tomato cans. He fought Mike Tyson. He did for $750 and a sack lunch. But look, Brendan, let me say this. This is what's so fun about this show, getting to talk to the best people. All of our viewers from Key West all the way up, all over the place, wherever our footprint is,
around the
Marlins
globe,
fan, Braves, Cardinals,
around the globe,
around the world. We do have a lot of expats and military. No matter where you are, 24/7, you can follow us live. If you miss it live, you can sync us while you're riding on your boat, in your truck, in your car, sitting in the deer stand,
if you've got a
sitting
nice
in a
boat,
turkey blind.
You should invite Rob and I on the boat.
Yeah. And you know what? If you're turkey hunting, now remember, if you're turkey hunting, you better have that sound turned down and have your earphones in, because when you do the turkey call, you're doing that hen call, you're going, hey, shoot, as MJ says, hunting turkeys is like chasing a ghost. If they could smell like they can hear and see, you never know. In Florida, y'all got those beautiful Osceola turkeys down there.
Yeah.
Florida is one of the great outdoor states in America. Remember my first time to the Everglades, I met the Miccosukee Indians run those airboat rides out there in the Everglades. And I'm riding around in the airboat. I go, where are all the gators? He goes, we're going to them. We went to this dock out in the middle of the Everglades. The guy took out about 50 I don't know, Circle B hot dogs or something, chopped them up and threw them out, and here come the gators. It's not that easy to find gators. They don't want anything to do with us, but look, smash that subscribe button, bottom right-hand corner. Brendan, again, tell them all the ways they can follow us. But, folks, we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. We, the people, are the greatest people in the history of the world. Go out and make great things happen. Help people out. Follow through. That's number one. Brendan, how can they keep up with us?
Just check us out. Just smash that subscribe button. If you're watching on YouTube in the bottom right hand, you can get our notifications, enable your phone, by the way, if you have subscribed, to accept notifications from YouTube. It's pretty easy. If not, Google it. And then if you're watching on Facebook, just click that follow button and you'll get the same notification on when we're live and where to find our show. Boom.
I love it. Hey,
we got to go to work now. We got other stuff to do.
SEC Sideline Sports Network and SECU. Watch out for that Hook 'em Horns podcast coming in a matter of minutes. Bye.
Hook 'em Horns. I don't know how that.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal and the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.